In our exploration of the Vatican's role during World War II, it's essential to establish the historical context. This involves understanding the geopolitical landscape of the era and the Vatican's position at the epicenter of both spiritual and political influence. The Vatican, as the heart of the Catholic Church, wielded significant moral authority across Europe and beyond. During the tumultuous years of World War II, the Vatican's stance was critical, as it navigated a world divided by conflict, ideology, and the horrors of the Holocaust. Setting this historical context is crucial because it frames the complexity of the Vatican's choices and actions during the war, a complexity that has prompted debate over whether its role was heroic or complicit. One significant example of the Vatican's involvement is the controversial Concordat between the Holy See and Nazi Germany in 1933. This agreement, which aimed to protect the rights of the Church in Germany, inadvertently lent legitimacy to the Nazi regime and is often cited in discussions questioning the Vatican's actions. Conversely, the efforts of individuals like Pope Pius XII, who reportedly worked behind the scenes to save numerous Jewish lives through discreet interventions, showcase another facet of the Vatican's wartime role. The importance of this context is underscored by the differing opinions it elicits. Some historians emphasize the Vatican's diplomatic efforts to maintain institutional stability and moral guidance in a chaotic world. Others criticize its perceived silence and lack of explicit condemnation of Nazi atrocities, arguing that it could have done more to leverage its influence against the Holocaust's horrors. This debate encapsulates the challenges of interpreting the Vatican's wartime conduct. The controversies surrounding the Vatican's role are further complicated by alternative viewpoints. Critics argue that the Vatican's priority of preserving its neutrality and institutional security sometimes came at the cost of moral clarity. Meanwhile, defenders highlight the perilous balance the Vatican had to maintain to protect the faithful under regimes hostile to religion. Understanding the historical context also illuminates how these wartime actions influenced future Vatican policies and relationships with Jewish communities and world governments. By setting the stage with this complex backdrop, we can better assess whether the Vatican acted as a moral care beacon, or if its actions, or lack thereof, aligned it with darker historical forces. This exploration reveals intricate layers that are essential to our interpretation of history and its shaping of the contemporary world. The heading Unveiling the Vatican's Role in WWII, Hero or Complicit, delves into the complex and often controversial role the Vatican played during the World War II. This topic is pivotal as it addresses the moral and political dilemmas faced by the Holy See, a central religious authority, amidst one of history's darkest periods. The Vatican's role can be viewed through multiple lenses: as a potential hero, aiding those persecuted by Nazi and fascist regimes, or as complicit, allegedly turning a blind eye to atrocities for political gain. One significant example of the Vatican's influence is its involvement in diplomacy and attempts to maintain neutrality. The Vatican sought to act as an intermediary between warring nations, leveraging its unique position to facilitate dialogue. However, maintaining neutrality often meant silence in the face of genocide, especially the Holocaust, leading critics to argue this stance equated to complicity. Another example involves the Vatican's efforts to protect Jews and other refugees. Many clergy members, inspired by humanitarian principles, clandestinely aided those fleeing persecution, hiding them in churches and monasteries across Europe. Pope Pius XII's role is central to this debate. Was he covertly aiding Jews through discreet initiatives, or was he complicit due to his public silence? Supporting opinions suggest that the Vatican's discreet actions were necessary to avoid Nazi retaliation, which could have exacerbated the situation for Catholics and Jews alike. Critics, however, argue that the silence served to preserve the Vatican's political power rather than prioritize humanitarian needs. The challenges and controversies surrounding the Vatican's role include accusations of prioritizing institutional survival over moral duty. The release of Vatican archives continues to fuel debates over whether more could have been done to condemn Hitler's regime explicitly. Additionally, some historians posit that the Vatican's alliances with fascist regimes, such as Mussolini's Italy, complicate its moral standing during this period. This discussion is deeply intertwined with broader themes of moral responsibility and the balance between political strategy and ethical imperatives. Understanding the Vatican's actions during WWII also sheds light on its post-war influence, shaping its modern diplomatic approaches and responses to international crises. The Vatican's WWII role remains a potent topic, urging reflection on leadership and morality amidst conflict, echoing through contemporary global challenges. The Vatican's stance during World War II, defined by its initial neutrality, presents a complex narrative in the historical landscape. Neutrality, in this context, refers to the Vatican's decision to abstain from choosing sides in the conflict, aiming to position itself as a mediator and humanitarian actor amidst global chaos. This strategic choice is pivotal in understanding the Vatican's role during the war, as it highlights its attempt to maintain religious influence and moral authority in a time of unprecedented moral and political conflict. The significance of this neutrality lies in its dual potential to be seen as a source of moral leadership or as a failure to confront evil. On one hand, it allowed the Vatican to provide humanitarian aid and refuge, asserting its position as a sanctuary for those persecuted by war-torn regimes. For instance, Pope Pius XII and the Holy See facilitated numerous efforts to save Jews through covert means from the atrocities of the Holocaust. Additionally, Vatican radio became an essential tool for communicating messages of peace and providing information to families separated by the war. However, this stance was not without controversy. Critics argue that the Vatican's neutrality rendered it complicit by omission, as it failed to publicly condemn the Axis powers' atrocities more forcefully. This perspective is fueled by the belief that a stronger vocal opposition could have wielded significant moral influence and perhaps saved more lives. The hesitance to explicitly denounce Nazi actions is viewed by some as a moral compromise, potentially derived from a fear of exacerbating attacks on Catholics in occupied territories or a desire to protect the Vatican's interests and sovereignty. The issue is further complicated by the existence of divergent opinions within the Catholic Church itself. Some church figures openly advocated for a stronger stance against Nazi Germany, which suggests internal conflict regarding the most ethical course of action during the war. This internal division reflects broader debates about the Church's responsibilities in times of crisis. The Vatican's initial neutrality intricately connects to broader discussions on its wartime actions, influencing perceptions of its legacy as either a hero or a complicit entity. This stance set the stage for subsequent Vatican decisions throughout the war, impacting its relationships with international powers and shaping post-war interpretations of its role. It remains a vital point of analysis in evaluating the influence and ethical responsibilities of religious institutions in global conflicts. The concept at the heart of unveiling the Vatican's role in WWII, hero or complicit, revolves around understanding the actions and influence of the Vatican during one of the most tumultuous periods in modern history. This topic is of profound significance as it seeks to unravel the complex duality of the Vatican's stance during World War II, whether it acted as a heroic figure offering sanctuary and aid, or if its silence and diplomatic engagements signaled complicity with Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. During World War II, the Vatican, under Pope Pius XII, occupied a unique position as a spiritual authority deeply intertwined with global politics. The significance of this role is multifaceted. On one hand, the Vatican was seen as a moral beacon, expected to condemn atrocities committed during the war. Conversely, it was a diplomatic entity that navigated its survival amidst totalitarian regimes. This dual role highlights the importance of examining its influence on the political and moral landscape of the era. One example illustrating the Vatican's potential heroism is the sheltering of Jews and other persecuted groups in religious institutions across Europe. Many Catholic clergy risked their lives acting against Nazi policies to save thousands. However, instances like the Vatican's Concordat with Nazi Germany in 1933, perceived by some as legitimizing Hitler's regime, raise questions about its complicity. Opinions differ on Pope Pius XII's wartime actions. Supporters argue his diplomatic efforts and discreet interventions were strategically aimed at preserving peace and protecting the Church. Critics, however, point to his public silence on the Holocaust as moral failure, suggesting that a more vocal stance could have influenced Nazi policies or bolstered Allied efforts. Challenges and controversies surround the Vatican's role, primarily due to scant public documentation and the secretive nature of its diplomatic communications. This ambiguity fuels debates about its motivations and effectiveness. There are also alternative viewpoints suggesting the Vatican prioritized the Church's long-term survival over immediate moral denunciation. The Vatican's actions during the war connect deeply with broader themes of morality, political pragmatism, and institutional power. Unraveling its role offers insights into the complexities faced by religious and political institutions in conflict, influencing how we interpret their responsibilities and legacies. As we delve into this nuanced historical narrative, we're encouraged to reflect on the enduring tension between ethical imperatives and strategic diplomacy, a theme that continues to resonate in today's global context.